Now it just feels like this is the time. This is the time where they are coming out with everything they got. They're putting as much technology and as much engineering as they can into these cameras, and I really feel like this is going to be a good few years for us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wedding Film Coach. My name is Luke, and today we're going to be taking a closer look at the newly announced Canon R5 and R6. And so these were just announced yesterday, July 9th, 2020, and I went ahead and uploaded a reaction video just from me watching the presentation and seeing the specs and seeing the pricing for the first time. And I gotta admit, I was really impressed in a lot of different ways with different features that both of these cameras are offering. Namely, I was very impressed that the Canon R6 really wasn't too dumbed down or watered down, for lack of a better phrase, from the R5. And so we're going to talk about all of those features and more, but I want to start with this thought. You know, last year, the Panasonic S1H came out, and this kind of had a party trick, you might say. I remember Philip Bloom did a review video for the Sony A7S when it first came out, and he referred to its low light capabilities as a party trick, kind of that one thing that you can do really well and it impresses people, but then, you know, there's not much to it after that. The rolling shutter was horrible, the bit rate, you know, the video quality wasn't that great other than the low light, and so, you know, it didn't have internal 4K. And so all of that to say, that reminded me of the S1H that came out last year from Panasonic. This touted, you know, 6K resolution, InBody, 10-bit 422 color, 4K 60 frames a second, and it had a lot of things going on for it on paper. And even when I got my hands on it, it still was an incredible camera. If you are looking to do any kind of studio work where you work in a controlled environment, you can control your lighting, you can control, you know, your framing, you aren't in a run and gun situation, then I believe that Panasonic S1H right now, before Canon has their cameras out, before Sony comes out with their new cameras, I believe that the Panasonic S1H, as far as video quality that you can get short of a cinema camera, is definitely the best mirrorless camera on the market right now, full stop. However, for my workflow, I'm always running and gunning, I'm always getting shots and moving and going, and I need to have really great autofocus tracking and autofocus, I need it to be able to lock on to my subject. And that's just something that I've grown to rely on in my workflow for wedding filmmaking specifically. And everybody has their own workflow, I know, but for me, the Panasonic S1H, the autofocus just was not there, and that's such a big part of my workflow that I had to say goodbye to it, and I had to stay with my Sonys. But I feel like now they were the first ones out of the gate with this. So Panasonic got the resolution, they got the video quality, the codecs right, they got, you know, the great color science, and so all of that stuff packed into this thing that you can hold in your hand without having to rig it up. Just get your camera, a lens, maybe a on-camera microphone, and you're really good to go. And so this was the first time that I think people could understand that you can really make good quality films with just a mirrorless camera in today's world. And so I feel like we're kind of going back through this cycle that the Canon Mark 5D Mark II or Mark III kind of led us into, this new age of digital storytelling with these DSLR cameras. And now this is happening the same way with the mirrorless cameras. And I'm really excited because I really feel like this is going to be kind of the new generation of video quality. So this is going to be another huge step up in quality, a huge step up in workflow management, a huge step up in so many different ways. And so with that first thought out of the mind, I think that that Canon, one of the main players in the digital imaging world, investing in the R5 and investing in the R6, investing their engineering in it, their technology, they see where the world is going. And I'm very excited about that because so many of us, especially wedding filmmakers, are already longing for that. And so I feel like this is going to be a really good decade for us as far as technology goes, as far as cameras go and lenses. And so get ready, because there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming. And even, even if you're not super excited about the R5 or the R6 because of price, don't forget that a lot of times these features and this technology will start to trickle down into their APS-C cameras, into their entry-level bodies eventually. Just look at the A7 III that came out a few years ago, back in 2018, I think. That camera had so many great specs in it, and it looked great on paper, and when you got it in your hands, it performed well if you got a model that didn't actually overheat. Lots of crazy stuff about that. But let's go ahead and take a look at the Canon EOS R5. So I'm going to play this just so we can kind of get, this is just a 3D 360 look at the camera. And I want to go all the way around here to the back so we can see the buttons on it. Pause it right there. So here we see that this thing has a fully articulating screen that can not only flip out but can articulate up and down depending on where you are and what you need to be seen at that moment. So that's great. So you know that even though I wouldn't buy the R5 just for vlogging, if you do enjoy vlogging or you want to get into vlogging and you also need the camera for something else, that's going to be a huge added bonus for it. And it's kind of like it comes in with the built-in monitor, because you don't have to add an additional monitor on it to be able to see yourself. So that's great. It looks like it has joystick on it, all the main dials that you're used to seeing. Let's see if we can get a good glimpse of the top of it here. It's not going to go around to the top, but I'll stop it right here. And so we got our movie record button on top, and there are some additional dials and features that they talked about in the presentation that I didn't fully have a good context for, but I feel like those are just going to be more quick options for quick access to change settings on the fly. So that is always good, especially for wedding filmmakers. The more access we have to change settings and dial in things quicker, the better for us. So that's a good look at that. Let's go ahead and kind of roll down to the features. It's just kind of, this is Canon's website right here that I'm looking at. Has this has full frame CMOS sensor, high speed shooting. This is all kind of photography things. Autofocus is kind of getting an upgrade with it's going to have animal eye detection now, as well as birds. I don't think that applied to birds before, but now if you are a wildlife photographer or want to get into wildlife photography, this is going to help you a lot, probably trying to capture those birds just right. Okay, here we get into the video specs. 8K video. Now this is RAW. This is 8K, and it does say, I remember in my reaction video, I was not sure if there was any crop in any of these video modes. It says here that it's uncropped 8K RAW video shooting at 30 FPS and 4K video shooting at 120 FPS in 422 10-bit H.265 Canon log. You get your dual pixel autofocus with all of those modes as well. Sometimes before, Canon wasn't able to make the autofocus work in all of its video modes, and so now that has been fixed, that's been addressed, and you should be able to get all of your autofocus working in all of your video modes. Let me look through here, and this is all internally recorded. Yeah, uncropped 8K RAW recording. This is going to be so great, everybody. It has dual card slots. You get one CF Express slot plus a UHS 2 SD card. So if you don't already use CF Express cards, this might be a good time to start keeping an eye out for CF Express cards, maybe on sale or on discount. So go ahead and invest in that, because if you're looking at getting this camera, you are going to need that CF Express card to get that 8K RAW recording. If you don't have that CF Express card, I don't think that you can do the 8K RAW recording. May not even be able to do the 4K 120 frames per second. So definitely get at least one CF Express card so you can really unlock the full potential of this camera. This is another great feature that I was really blown away by. This is the first camera, the R5, that Canon has included InBody image stabilization. And I didn't realize that. I'm a Sony shooter right now, and so I haven't paid super close attention to what Canon's doing, but that really surprised me that this is the first camera they're including IBIS in. So they say that it has up to 8 stops of stabilization, and essentially what that means, it's kind of hard to figure that out for video, but think about when you're shooting a picture, 8 stops. Think about your shutter speed. If your shutter speed is slower, it's going to show that motion blur a little bit more, and if it's faster, it's going to cut out that motion blur. And so this is what it means. Think of those stops in your shutter speeds, and this is going to give you the benefit of making that shutter speed faster, up to 8 stops, but while keeping your shutter a little slower, maybe to get more light in. That IBIS is going to compensate for that, making sure you get really crisp images. And I've heard a few YouTubers and other people talk about how they've shot with longer lenses, even like a 200 millimeter, and still have got tack sharp photos. So that's really exciting, and that the same concept applies to video. And so I'm really excited to start seeing some example videos online, and as soon as I get mine in, I pre-ordered one this morning, I will definitely have some more videos out to review those features with. It has some cloud processing as well that I'm not too worried about. Okay, it's just some email signups there for their celebrity endorsements. So all around, guys, the R5 is going to have some really nice features. I'm excited about the autofocus. I'm excited about the video quality. I'm excited about the IBIS. All of those things are just incredible improvements to what Canon's already been doing, what the industry's already been doing for several years. So now let's take a look at the R6. So we were gawking over the R5. Let's see what the R6 has to offer. Let me go over here. So here we have the R6, and you can already tell on Canon's website, this is not as sleek or as maybe dramatic as they're making the R5. It's just kind of a plain white page, but here you get some good images of the R6. It's going to be about the same size, maybe just a touch smaller than the R5, but you see mainly looks the same on the back and the top. I don't think it has the same kind of information screen on top as the R5 does, but for videographers, that's not going to be a huge deal. For filmmakers, because we're always looking at the back panel or a monitor, so no big deal for us. Let's go into features. Still, we have that great sensor. It's not as many megapixels as the R5, but again, if you're focusing on filmmaking, megapixels aren't always the best thing to one. So you're getting the same size sensor, full frame sensor, with less megapixels, which means that these megapixels are actually larger in size, which means each megapixel or each pixel rather can let in more light, which is good because that's going to decrease the amount of noise and the amount of grain that you have in your footage, which is always a good thing. Cleaner footage is always a good thing. It does list that the ISO range of the R6 is actually more than the R5, and so again, this really seems like the thing they're pushing towards most filmmakers. If you don't need that 8K RAW, then I think the R6 is going to be the way to go. Let's keep looking at it. It talks about shooting, photography, same autofocus, the same autofocus system, dual pixel in all video modes, covering 100% of the frame, so you're never going to lose focus with something moving outside of the autofocus area. It has subject tracking with people, animals, using deep learning technology. That's probably just some nice marketing stuff, but you can know that whatever you're shooting, you're going to have great autofocus. And here's our video modes. Let's click on that, open it up. 4K up to 60 frames per second. Let's see if it's cropped. Let's see if I can find some more info on it. Okay, so as far as the information it's giving us right here, it's still not saying whether it's uncropped or cropped, which makes me a little nervous. I haven't seen anything else like official documents out there clarifying whether things are cropped or not, but I believe that it's going to have a full frame readout of 4K 60 frames per second. I do know, I did see yesterday that it is still going to have a recording time limit on it, and so we're still going to be limited to about 30 minutes, 29 minutes and 59 seconds or whatever it is. And I've heard from a few different sources that the R5 is already showing signs of overheating in some of the test uses. I'm not sure how people have heard that, because I don't think but just a handful of people have had those cameras yet, but that's kind of the word on the street as of right now. I haven't heard anything specifically about the R6 though overheating, and so we're just gonna have to wait to see, and I will definitely do some of those tests and let you all know. But again, all kinds of great features here. 10-bit 422 color, Canon log. You get 4K up to 60 frames per second. And so when the R5 can do 120 frames a second in 4K, I think for most people, 80, maybe 90% of filmmakers out there, 4K 60 frames per second is going to be just fine. 1080 up to 120 frames per second, as long as it's a good clean 120 frames per second, I think that's going to look great as well. Let's keep looking. This still has the image stabilization as well. The InBody image stabilization can provide up to 8 stops of shake correction. So let's just see what this says here. The EOS R6 camera features Canon's new 5-axis IBIS InBody image stabilization that will not only help enhance the ability to handhold still images at slower shutter speeds, but will also help to reduce camera shake when recording movies. Additionally, the EOS R6 camera's InBody image stabilizer will work in combination with lens-based optical image stabilizers found in many Canon RF and EF lenses. And so I'm curious to know if maybe that 8 stops is if you have the camera and a lens that also has image stabilization in it, if that is kind of a 1-2 combo kind of thing, or if you only get maybe 5 stops if it's just your camera and your lens doesn't have the stabilization in it. We will have to see. It does look like it has a really great back panel on it, touchscreen, 3.69 million dots. I feel like that is going to be plenty to get a good crisp image and to make sure that you know you're in focus, to get a good indication of the quality of your image that you're looking at. And it's varied angles, so it means you can flip it out. The R6, it just has 2 SD card slots, and so you don't have to worry about the CF Express cards here. And so I feel like that's a good thing, because most people who are in the video world right now and aren't working with higher end cameras already, we're used to these SD cards. And honestly, SD card technology has come a long way in the last few years, and so they keep getting faster, they keep getting more dependable, they keep getting a bit more rugged. And so I feel like going with these dual UHS-2 SD memory card slots was a really great move by Canon to not have to force so many users into getting a brand new card, maybe something they're not familiar with, or something that they just don't have the workflow for right now. So I feel like that's going to be great. It has built-in Bluetooth technology, and so it has these quick control dials, 1 and quick control dial 2, that provide direct control over traditional exposure controls such as shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and are fully customizable to the user's preferences. That's key, and you would really expect that in a camera like this, and so that's not a huge surprise, but it's just nice that they're making this a main point to let us know that, hey, we designed this with you in mind, we designed this with the user in mind, and so that is all good. And then you can get a battery grip. Let's talk about the battery for a moment. There's nothing about it on here, but there is a new LP E6NH. The H on the end of that is new, and it's just kind of a higher capacity. And from what I understand, it's that they've designed this battery to work specifically with the R6 and R5 in a way that maximizes its capacity and maximizes its efficiency. And so that's going to give you longer filming time. It's going to give you more exposure. It's going to give you more exposures or more pictures that you can take with it. And so I think this is a solid camera. Really, the only thing that, as a filmmaker, the only thing that you're giving up by not getting the R5 and going with the R6 instead is you're giving up. I think the R5 has a little bit better of a touchscreen on the back, just as far as more dots per inch, and that's not a huge deal, because if you don't have that already, you're not used to having it, and so you're not going to know any better, so it doesn't matter. You're giving up the CF Express card, which again, if you're not used to using, it doesn't matter. You're giving up the 8K RAW 12-bit. Might matter, probably doesn't matter, unless you are solely a commercial filmmaker or an indie filmmaker, then I don't think you're going to need that 8K RAW. Sure, it would be cool to try out, it would be cool to test, but on a wedding day, unless you are in a place in your business where you can really upsell that 8K, which may be a great thing. And listen, you know, if that is something you can upsell, really upsell it and make it a premium feature in your package and charge enough to, you know, to go out and rent the camera for the day. You already have your lenses, so you don't need anything else. You'll need to get that CF Express card with it, but charge enough for that 8K where you can go out and rent this camera, and then you kind of play with it on, you know, while making money with it at the same time. I think that would be a really cool way to go out and try this camera out. But hey, those are my initial first impression thoughts after kind of digesting the presentation from yesterday, from last night. And I'm still just really impressed, guys. You know, I've never been a fanboy of anybody. I've used Nikon, I've used Canon, I've used Sony. I have right now. I have all of those brands in my camera bag in some capacity. And I've never wanted to say, well, this brand is better than the other, or this brand isn't, because they all kind of flux. They go back and forth. Sometimes they're worried more about market shares. Sometimes they're really worried about making sure that their customers are happy. And now it just feels like this is the time. This is the time where they are coming out with everything they got. They're putting as much technology and as much engineering as they can into these cameras, and I really feel like this is going to be a good few years for us. And so if you're ready to pull the trigger, and if you're ready to get a new camera, you're ready to invest in a new system, then I think this R6 is going to be great. Spending an extra $1,400 or whatever it is for the R5, I think you can probably spend that money on a great lens, or maybe something else that you need to upgrade, maybe even lighting or audio capture, anything like that. But definitely take a good long look at it, and let me know in the comments what you think you're going to go with, the R5 or the R6, and let me know why. Maybe there's something I'm missing, and if I've said anything, you know, as I'm going through here, I had questions and you know the answer to it because you watched somebody else or because you researched the information somewhere else, let everybody else know in the comments, because that would be really helpful. Well, thanks for going through this video with me. I really appreciate it. I hope you're excited. I'm excited. I hope you're as excited as I am for what's to come in the video industry. And yeah, we'll go through it all together, okay? Well, hey, have a great day, and I will see you all in the next video. See ya.